senses not so common. This is the Common Sense Show with Dave Hodges.
Welcome to hour number 3, everybody, and this is Dave Hodges, your host. Also flying co-pilot with me is Katie Whalen, our health reporter, who will have her own revelation at the bottom of the hour, and you're not going to want to miss this. And it's something that we're going to need everyone's help on. Some of you already know what I'm talking about. If you don't, we'll give you full disclosure. But right now, you heard me say in the last hour, I'm proud to be an American, but with the way that our federal government is going, I'm ashamed to be an American at the same time. As I see these events unfolding, I don't even recognize this country anymore. It's certainly not the country I grew up in. It's certainly not the country that I want my son and his generation to grow up in. It's just heinous. What we have, the word is heinous abuse of authority. And we have on an incredibly brave person who's we're going to walk through the events that happened at the, what I call the execution of Rouge Finicum, a man who was exercising his First Amendment rights, his right to assemble. They had not posed a threat to any individual, and we saw on tape the execution of an unarmed man. Well, Shawna, thanks for joining us, and I know this is a very difficult time for you. I can imagine you're not sleeping very well, and I would imagine, the meals aren't going down as good as they normally do. So I wanted you to know from that perspective, I so appreciate your courage, but your conviction to the truth to come on this show and set our listening audience straight about what happened.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate we have the opportunity to tell the truth, because I see in the media there's a lot of falsehoods that are going out, and we have to speak up and tell what really happened so that they will know what really went down.
Well, let's start with that morning. You guys were taking a trip, Ammon and his brother and Lavoie, you and so forth, and Victoria, and a gentleman named Mark McConnell. You were all taking a trip to go to John Day. What was the purpose of your trip?
That morning, we had our meeting, and the trip was set up. There was a meeting in John Day that evening with the sheriff of Grant County, and he had called in a bunch of ranchers. I don't know if he called them or they had a big bunch of ranchers, because the sheriff over there is very constitutional and has worked well and really in support of the Constitution. And they wanted to hear the presentation that Ammon Bundy gives and Ryan Payne and Ryan Bundy about personal rights, about our rights and how they're created and how they're protected by the Constitution itself and what the Constitution is about. And they've been out teaching many ranchers and other citizens in Harney County. They would come down there and learn these things, and then it was awesome. And they had this meeting set up for that evening, and a couple of days before that, we had a wonderful family show up. It's the Sharp family, and we had heard them sing before. It's a mother. She has 10 children, and they sing gospel music. And the Lord brought them here. The Lord brought them. And they fill your heart with so much peace and comfort, and that's why they came. So they decided that that's what they were going to do, is have them come because they wanted to sing. They had been there singing for us for a few days, and the day before, their oldest daughter just came from EMT school. She finished and joined them. So the whole program was going to go that they were going to put this performance on at that meeting in John Day. Well, normally I don't go to the meetings. I have other things I was working on, but the guys were all getting ready to go, and they had planned it out where everybody was going at separate times in separate individual cars. And at that time, we were going to send the family and some others ahead and get prepared. And as they were getting into their their van to drive, they had everybody in except the oldest daughter because she was still getting ready. And they needed to take off, so we said, okay, go ahead and go. Then we were going to come. Well, I was originally not going, but Lavoie was driving his truck, and Ryan Payne was in the passenger side. Ryan Bundy was in the back, and they were taking Victoria, this daughter, the 18-year-old. And we had another person that was supposed to be going to film it, to video it, but we couldn't find him at the last minute. And so I said, okay, I will go and do that. And then, because I was preparing to go home, I said, I will go and do that, and then see, I was going to go home afterwards. So I jumped in the truck behind the passenger seat, and we headed out for John Day. When we had traveled for about a half an hour, and behind us was supposed to come in about 15 minutes or so, was going to be the second vehicle, which had Mark McConnell in. He was driving, and Buddha and Ammon Bundy. Anyway, they were in a different vehicle, and they were supposed to be coming behind us. And then we had a reporter that was supposed to be coming 10 minutes behind that. And so we headed out. We traveled for probably, I'm guessing, around a half an hour. During that time, I was busy on the phone. I was calling people in John Day, some of our friends, saying, you ought to come and see the concert. You know, it's going to be really interesting, and you'll really love it. I wanted them to be able to hear what was happening and to understand. And then I also had some of the guys' families, like Lavoie's wife was calling, you know, and I was texting saying this is great. His daughter was playing a basketball game, and she wanted to be there, but they had, you know, she's at high school. Anyway, I was in communication with a lot of people at that time. We'd traveled for about a half an hour, and we're going through the hills. Now, I don't know how far it is, and I don't even know which direction we're going, because I do not geographically know Oregon. Not from here, wasn't familiar. And we got to this snowed valley, and they said, and I looked up, and they said, oh, look at all those vehicles that were coming out of the side canyon. There were a whole bunch of them up into this snowed-in valley off the side road. And they started to filing out and falling in behind the Jeep. And at that time, I think, is when Lavoie and Ryan realized that it was going to be an ambush, that it was a setup. And they got a little bit nervous, because as they came out, they came up on quickly and flipped on their lights. All I could see was flashing lights. As they were, you know, and they were starting to pull over the Jeep, because I could see in the rearview mirror that the Jeep was slowing down. So I turned around, and I could see that they were kind of coming up on top of the Jeep, and the Jeep stopped, and we kept going, because Lavoie said, we have to get to John Day, and we have to, because we're meeting the sheriff, we've got to get to John Day. So he was speeding up. And then the cars, the police cars, or whoever they were, I don't know, because I couldn't see them exactly, other than they were different colored vehicles at the time, like SUVs. Anyway, I could just see the lights coming up quickly upon us. And Ryan Payne says, Lavoie, you need to pull over. Just pull over. And Lavoie said, no, we got to go see the sheriff. And finally, Ryan Payne said, you got to pull over. You got to stop, you know. And so Lavoie slowed down and stopped. And Ryan Payne rolled down the window. Now, he's in the passenger side. And he puts both his arms out the window and puts it, you know, to show, I guess, that he doesn't have any weapons or whatever, but he puts his hands out, and he starts to put his head out, and a bullet comes by, and I thought it hit him in the arm. He jumps back really fast into the car, his hands, and it hits I thought it hit the bracelet on his arm, but it didn't. It hit the metal between the mirror and the door. And that freaked us out. And he goes, they're shooting
while you were stopped, they didn't give you an opportunity to surrender. They didn't get on their PA system and said, okay, we're going to order you out of the car.
Anything.
So the first thing they did was to shoot at you.
Shoot at him. Yep, shoot at Ryan's hands. And so that freaked us out. And then Lavoie was going to take off, and Ryan said, no, they're making business. We better stop. Just wait. And so he gets out, and he's yelling at him. There's women in the car, so he jumps out of the car. And then he's standing there, and he yells back at whoever's behind us, and he says, there's women in the car. And we hear them say, if the women want out, let them out, or let the women out. Well, my door was locked, and Victoria was sitting next to me, and she's just a young girl, just barely 18, and she's freaked out. Well, I'm kind of freaked out, too, because they're shooting already, and we haven't even done any, and that was really weird. And then I can look up, and I looked up, and on the top of Lavoie's hat, there is a red laser pointed to the top of his head, because I can see him in the back seat. And he saw that, because it was like flashing around, and we could see it on his head. And he stuck his hand out and his head out, and he yells, we're going to see the sheriff. We are going to John Day to meet with the sheriff. And he said, go ahead, shoot me then, because he could see the laser on his head in the mirror. And then he said that 3 or 4 times, we're going to see the sheriff. And then he said to us, if you want to get out, get out. And Victoria says, I'm not getting out. And my mother instinct kicks in, and I said, I'm not leaving her. I'm not getting out. So he says, okay, and so he just decided to gun it, and we just slid down the floorboard. I was still sitting up. There wasn't really enough room for us, so I slide down there. But Victoria leaned over on me, and Ryan was down, and we took off, and we tried at that moment to dial out 911, anybody we knew, trying to call. We had nobody. None of us had any service. Suddenly the service was all gone, like they already knew. Sure. They either shut it off or knew that spot had absolutely no service, because we couldn't call one single anything. We had no service. And I had just barely been on the phone, so I knew that it had just cut off. So so I immediately grabbed my camera that I had, because Ryan turned on his phone, and he's talking into his phone saying what's going on, I don't know if he's videoing or exactly how he's doing it, but he's recording what's happening. And I am, and I'm down as low as I can get, and I've got the camera up, and it's on, Lavoie, and I said to him, I said, how far do you think we can get before they shoot the tires out? How far do we have to go? And he said, we have to go 50 miles. Oh, my heart sunk. I'm going, oh, my gosh, we're going to make 50 miles. And they're gaining on us, and they're coming up around the side of us, and he's going for it. And suddenly we hit because we're down, I guess we came around the corner. I'm not really sure, but all I know is all of a sudden the truck hits this slush. And I don't know if he hit the brakes or if he was just swerving exactly, but this big spray of snow and ice came up to the side over on the right side of us, and he swerves over to the left, and then now he's going over into the snowbank. At that point, I could see the vehicles barricading across the road, and he's trying to go around, and we get stuck.
So he was going to go around the 2 vehicles there, and he got stuck in the snowbank. And so let's talk about what happened then, and when Lavoie decided to exit the vehicle.
Well, at that point, as soon as that vehicle stopped, he flung open the door, and he jumped out of the vehicle, and the snow was deep, and he throws his hands wide open, and he runs. Well, he's trying to. How do you run through snow, waist deep? Anyway, he's trying to get through the snow, and he's got his hands out, and he's yelling, "Just shoot me then. Just shoot me, just shoot me then." And I could not understand why he was doing that. And since that day, I have come to understand a little bit more that because I can't do his thinking for him, but he has a number of daughters. And I really believe that he had intention to draw the fire away from us because they had lasers all over the place and started shooting.
Did you have lasers on your body?
Absolutely. They had lasers all over us, and we were freaking out because they were shooting the truck. He was out there. We couldn't do anything. We got pinned down.
Let me stop you for a second, Shawna. Let me stop you just for a second.
Yeah.
Are you saying at the point he got out of the vehicle, they were already firing upon the vehicle?
They started firing immediately upon the vehicle.
When the vehicle came to a stop, when you came to a stop in that snowbank, is that when they started to fire again?
I think he jumped out first, and then they began to fire.
Okay.
I think he hit the snow before they actually started firing, but that's when we couldn't get up because we were getting blasted with bullets, and lasers were every place in the car, and they were shooting everything, and the windows went out, and the passenger window got blown out, and his door was still open, and Victoria and Ryan. Now I couldn't see him after he left my camera because I'm panning over there, but I'm down low and they're kind of in front of me, so I can't see it as well. But Victoria would get up and I'd say, "Oh, get down," and she was trying to see him, and she said, "They shot him, and Ryan said they shot him, and they shot him again, and Ryan says he's dead, but the bullets never stopped. They kept coming. They kept shooting the vehicle. We were pinned. We couldn't get up. It was like we were not supposed to get out of that.
How long did they keep shooting at you?
The windows were blasted out. I'm sitting there next to that passenger window down. We're praying. We're praying as hard as we can to protect us, to save us. I'm looking up at the window next to my head, and there are bullets or whatever they hit. 5 times they hit that window, and it never broke. I don't know if it was because the angle, or I praise the Lord because I say He was protecting us because we were praying so hard to save us. And
Shawna, how many times do you?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, how many times do you think they shot at the vehicle, if you were to guess, and how long did this assault go on after Lavoie was shot?
Oh, hundreds of bullets, hundreds. They didn't stop. I mean, there was a laser on her knee, and I'd grab her knee and move it. There was that one on his hat, and we'd push her. We were just dodging the lasers, and it just kept shooting. And then they started shooting some weird things in that were sending smoke, and they burned our eyes and our nose and our faces, and so they were. Anyway, it was awful. We just so it went on for, I'd say, I don't know if it's 5-10 minutes. I don't know how long it was. I mean, in that situation, I can't tell time. The only way I could tell you is if you had my camera and you could see how long I was videoing. That's all I can tell you.
Well, how did the shooting stop, and then they took you into custody? Let's talk about that.
Well, Victoria had just finished EMT school 2 days before that. And she was screaming out the window, "Let me help him, let me help him." But see, they didn't answer when she did that. And then she really was upset because they killed him. And she says, "Let me cover his body. I'm an EMT, I'm an EMT." And she was screaming. And then after we'd had enough of this, it was just, it was definitely that they had no intention to let us out of there. So we started screaming together. She was screaming, "Stop, stop." And I was really upset. And I said, "Stop it right now, just stop." And finally they heard us, I guess. I have no idea why they stopped. But I'm telling you that they stopped, and then they said, "Send the man out." And at that time, Ryan said, "I've been hit in the shoulder." And we looked, and sure enough, he had been hit in the right shoulder, and he was bleeding. and Victoria wanted to take care of it, but they were saying, get out of the car, so he came out with his hands up and had to back out, and they took him, and then they tell the next one to get out, so she gets out with her hands up, and of course they arrested her, or took her, and then I came out. I had to drop my camera and my phone and all my notebooks, and I came out with my hands up, and because the truck's kind of a slant, so we all came out the same back door. And as I got out, I was right behind Victoria, and I noticed that the truck tire was still spinning in the snow. And so it was still spinning, and we look over there, and there's Lavoie laying dead on the snow. Now, what was really odd with that was because he went out facing them, and when we saw him, he was laying with his back down and his face up, which didn't make sense. And his left hand was still out, and his right hand was kind of just leaned up by his chest. And his knees were still buried in the snow. And until I saw the FBI video yesterday, it made no sense to me. Why would he be facing up like that? He was obviously dead. His hat was still on. He had his glasses on. I don't understand how he was in that position. But as we were walking, we also saw all these men coming out from behind the trees. There were all these men that had rifles and hats on, had like little binoculars on them. They were all behind all these trees that were facing him, facing us. And I would say, and in my guess, I would guess about 24 of them maybe. I'm guessing, but there was a number of them. And then we went back, and they took us over and set us on a road and put handcuffs on us. And then as I was coming out with my hands up, they yelled at me and said, who else is in the vehicle? I said, no one. Nobody else is in the vehicle. They asked me that 3 or 4 times. Nobody. I'm the last one. There's nobody in there. As soon as they got me to the road and put the cuffs on me, they opened fire and started riddling that truck again. Just riddling the truck with bullets. And
trying to kill anyone that might be behind, yeah.
I guess. I don't know, but they just riddled it, and they broke the window that I was sitting next to, you know. So now that window's blown out. But they had, up to that time, they hadn't broken that window, but now it was totally, they just opened fire on that truck.
Victoria, Shawna, we're running kind of short on time, so let me move this ahead.
Sorry.
You have an appearance tomorrow, don't you?
No, I have to go back and see the attorney. We're going back to the court because when I was released, they did not give me the terms and conditions or whatever. They gave me nothing. I didn't sign anything.
That's where I was going with this.
I didn't know anything. They just kicked me out.
They could end up telling you that you're gag ordered and you can't speak to the media anymore, correct?
I'm sure they're going to say that to me.
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure. I don't even know because they didn't tell me anything, so I didn't know. Other than, here's one thing they did tell me. They did tell me that I had to get all the guns. They called my husband and said I had to have all the guns out of our house if I came home, and that they had to go somewhere else. So that day, my husband had taken them to my daughter's house and put them in their big office, their shed, their building they have there, construction building. And my son-in-law was in that building that night working on his backhoe, and he fell asleep in the chair by the wood stove. And for some reason, after the family went up to the house, and with the little children, my daughter and the little kids, somehow that thing caught on fire and exploded and burned down the whole shop with her husband in it. And she got there, and all my guns and bullets were blown. It was awful. It was awful. She couldn't get in the building. So now he's killed. I'm trying to get home. They call me back and say, you got to get back here. They didn't put this ankle bracelet or something they were supposed to put on you. They didn't do it, and I was torn in half. I was 3 hours out and had to come back, and I couldn't get to my family. I'm really distraught because I can't do it until in the morning. So in the morning, I have to go back there, and they're going to give me terms and conditions and whatever. I don't know.
Let me ask you a real pointed question here. Did anyone inside the vehicle or did Lavoie do anything to warrant being shot at?
What do you mean by that? Did he do
In other
anything
words,
to...
from the law enforcement perspective, they're going to come out with, they're going to spin the narrative, as you know. Okay? From
course.
your perspective, did Lavoie deserve to be shot? Did he act in a threatening manner?
Absolutely not.
All right.
He
I
never
want to get that on the
pointed a
record.
gun. Yeah, nothing. Yeah.
Okay. And at the first traffic stop, the first roadblock, you were fired upon without provocation, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
this is Nazi Germany, and you had an encounter with the Gestapo. This is how I see it. When people aren't offering resistance, what they should have done. You wouldn't believe all the law enforcement agencies I've had write to me. We're gonna. Boy, I'm getting my own voice back in my ear. But I've had law enforcement agents write to me, Shawna, and they're telling me that they should have moved immediately upon Lavoie's body to see if he was alive, and by putting cover on the car, so if no one was doing anything, you don't shoot. And they said that they should have checked him to see if he was still alive, to give him medical assistance. They didn't do that. They acted with complete depraved indifference towards Lavoie. And then the way they've handled you guys, first of all, Victoria wasn't even part of the actions of Ammon Bundy and what was trying to be accomplished there by educating the ranchers, and yet they could have killed her. They could have killed an innocent person without even giving them the right to give up. That's the thing. They never gave you an opportunity to surrender until after Lavoie was dead. Am I right?
Right. And even then they weren't going to.
Horrible. Just horrible. And to Todd, we're going to skip this last break and we'll go right into Katie's segment here when we're done with Shawna. But this is, I said this last hour, this makes me ashamed to be an American. That we could act with such depraved indifference.
Don't ever be ashamed to be an American. We have to make the difference.
I agree. We do need to make a difference, and I'm glad to hear you say that. Well, listen, I'm so glad that you came on the show with us, Shawna. I speak for my listening audience, and for Katie. We so respect you, and your courage for coming on, because we know how
appreciate it. This was a man who was killed in cold blood. That's all I can tell you.
I agree.
We should pray for those people. We should pray for the people who did it. And we need to pray for the family, because this is God's country. He created the Constitution for us, and we have to realize that it's in His hands. And we must pray. As a nation, we have to pray.
You embody the spirit that makes me proud to be an American. And the FBI in this instance, it's beyond words. Shawna, God bless you. I wish you complete justice in the courts. I know they've charged you with impeding federal officers. Of course, they had to make up some bogus nonsense. I've read the charge. It doesn't even make sense. But I wish you the best. No. Our listening audience is going to pray for you that you all are set free and justice be done and the murderers of Lavoie are brought to justice. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We will follow this carefully. And again, thanks to Katie for making this interview possible. Okay. Well, Katie, can you come on in?
I'm here, Dave. Oh, my goodness.
You know, you are fantastic at putting together interviews and stories with such brave people like Shawna, but you're causing me to lose sleep.
Well, sometimes it's justified to lose sleep, because in the big picture, we've got to get to the bottom of this. I've met Shawna. I know her sister. I've known her sister for years. Shawna's the real deal. What you hear is what you hear. These were God-fearing people trying to educate the public on their God-given rights, constitutional rights, and they were shot at. I called it a canned hunt. A canned hunt. Remember canned hunts? And, they take hunters to Africa and they put animals in these small cages, and then hunters line up and just whack them all. That's what this was, only they were humans. This is disgusting, Dave.
Sometimes dead air is good so people can collect their thoughts. But I would really encourage everyone in the listening audience to keep Shawna and Ammon and of course Lavoie's family and all the rest that were there in their prayers. Please pray for justice with these people, because what I fear is going to happen is what happened at Waco. after they butchered those people by running the tanks to the walls and burned women and children to death, when they put the survivors, I think there were 12 of them, if memory serves me correctly, but when they put the 12 survivors on trial, they weren't allowed to speak to the media. They couldn't give any statements. So this is why it was really important that we had Shawna on tonight. And this archive is going to go far and wide. I promise you, as God gives me the strength, as many people are going to hear this as I can possibly make happen, because the only way that we can correct living in Nazi Germany is to identify the Gestapo and put them all in jail.
I don't think this is going to be a Waco. It's a different day. There's a different media. There's a different spirit. People are experiencing firsthand what's happening. They're seeing it, feeling it. This isn't Waco. This could turn the corner. I don't know how it's going to end, but I am just grateful we're getting the information out as much as we can. So that's pretty much what I have to say about that.
We have to change gears here because we have another serious issue we've got to contend with. Folks, you know, Katie joined me. Gosh, Katie, I don't remember. It's almost been a year, hasn't it?
It's been a year this month. Yeah, it's our anniversary.